Hello, you fine people. I am Frost, and hopefully you can hear me. And this is Frost Written, where I'm working on the lore for the Legend Seeker role-playing game that Erudi is making. Happy Thursday! And if I'm talking to myself in a void, then damn it. All right. Talk low. Really? You think I'm low? I have it peaked into the red. Interesting. So, I'm sorry you can't hear me, Savage Talk. Maybe you got some wax in your ears. Or maybe I'm really low. It's possible I'm low. Let me know. So, we're going to be talking about all kinds of crazy, nasty things that happened during the God Killer War. And I have a guest to bring on that's going to talk about some of this stuff with you. You're always right. He's always right. It's East Coast. All right. I'm going to unmute myself over here. And I think this person's going to come in and talk to you about a certain part of the lore. Are you ready? I'm ready. Come on in whenever you're ready. Savage Talk X. All right. Now that was disturbing.
I could talk in the Chrysanth voice if you want, if you really want to hear disturbing.
Ugh. No, this is a great voice. I like this voice.
I thought as much.
Mm-hmm. He's very low. Let me kick him up here a little bit more. I'll even kick myself
I may have
up.
been away from my mic. Sorry.
All right, how's that? Better? Better.
Better? Better?
We'll see what they say.
Did you hear that, chat?
If Chrysanth heard that, she's probably going to be busy throwing up. No, Erudi, no. Nice.
All right. I think that means it's working.
I think so too. I'm going to kick my input up a little bit more too. So, yeah, you wanted to talk about a specific fun place that I think is close to your heart. It's a place of love and joy, and not at all horrors and just, well, it's, yeah, we'll just go into that. You start talking about it. It's a horrible place.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to hop right into it, huh? All right.
Let's do it.
Well, first, hello, you chat bastards. It's Erudi. I'm here joining Frost on his titular show, Frost Written. And we're going to talk lore. We're going to talk lots of lore. And he let me know that he wanted to talk about a very specific kind of lore today. I said, well, you know what? Why don't I hop on and we can chat about that together, because you guys don't get to see it a lot of the times, but me and Frost, we brainstorm off each other very well. Even literally about 15 minutes before the stream started, we had a really cool back and forth about some interesting characters. And we just kind of riffed some really awesome lore right there on the spot. It was pretty sweet. Wouldn't you say so?
It's fresh. It's new. It's exciting. I like it.
It is. It's very exciting. I was very thrilled about it. But yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff that's a little bit different today. So far, Frost has kind of been covering, different cities, different regions, maybe some of the creatures and cultures, occasionally touching on some dragons. But there are other places besides just the Godlands, and I don't mean surrounding continents or whatnot. I mean places within places, pocket dimensions, mirror realms, the Fey realms, etc., etc. And there are also other beings besides the regular old humanoids of Erudia. There are devils and demons. They exist, but they're not what you normally expect from a traditional setting like this. They're not your run-of-the-mill 5e devils and demons type thing. They've sort of got a different background, and it ties into a little bit of what Frost wanted to go into today. He told me his topic was going to be talking about a certain branch off of the elves. You guys know there's no drow in my setting, not specifically at least. There's no Lolth, there's no matriarchal society that's underneath in caverns and what have you. But there are dark elves. There are elves that are different from their typically fair-skinned counterparts. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. But to kind of get some backstory on them, you got to know about a little something else. The demons of Erudia, also known as the denizens of the underside. What is the underside? I'm about to tell you. So the underside is a malevolent reflection of Erudia, an ethereal echo existing just beneath the surface of the visible world. It was created inadvertently by Grix, the god of deception and trickery. By the way, we've got some pretty cool emotes that are all focused on Grix coming to the tabletop channel as well as the Discord. So keep your eye out for those.
Nice.
But it was created by him, and this happened during the cataclysmic events of the Godkiller War. This twisted mirror realm was born from basically what was a failed attempt to unleash a supposed super weapon that was hidden by the keepers, the gods of the gods. But instead of this weapon bringing about the destruction that he intended, the device or the artifact or whatever it is, it didn't function as he expected. It instead fractured reality, spawning this bizarre and abstract version of the current world, where landscapes and objects from the mortal realm were grotesquely distorted and perverted. This shadow realm is darker, it's more sinister, and often appears as a nightmarish version of the real world. It's inhabited by aberrations and demonic entities, with the landscape itself kind of serving as a hostile environment that defies the natural laws known to the surface dwellers. This place is called the Underside. And basically, everything that is on the above world is echoed in the Underside, but in a twisted fashion. Even the gods. Now, we're not going to talk too much about them here because I don't want to branch too much into that area of this. But there are a element of beings called the undergods that exist in the Underside. We're not really here to talk about the demons themselves. That's a whole different subject. What we do want to talk about is a certain culture of people that ended up in the Underside as a result of Grix's experiments. So I'll kick that over to you now, Frost.
So, what I was brainstorming.
What I just said, you can ask that too.
What's that?
And if you have any questions about anything I said as we're going, you can dig at my brain too if you want.
Definitely, I'm gonna do that right now. So this was created because of Grix, correct? The Underside was a direct result of him once again trying to make something. Correct.
Correct. Yeah, a common theme of Grix's journey is trying to understand things that are greater than him, and everybody else suffers as a result.
Okay, so it existed and it happened. Now, the way I was brainstorming that some of these elves, or however many of them, or the precursors, or whichever ones were the first ones went there, is they were attempting to do something not akin to what he was doing, but they were trying to come up with their own version of something to defeat his forces, and basically fell into the same trap he had. And their super weapon, or whatever it was, their super thing they were trying to do, fractured, broke, and sucked them into that realm, and then twisted and basically turned all of them into what they are. Now, does that sound too similar? Crazy? Does it work?
It could kind of be both, I think. So the idea is, we're talking about the elves here, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So the idea in my head was that he was doing this thing, and wherever he was messing with this thing was also like right in the heart of an elven province or an elven kingdom. And those who are at ground zero really got the brunt of this, while the rest of the world mostly just got like echoed into this Underside. They literally got shoved into it and transformed along the way, so kind of transmuted, becoming sort of how did you phrase it? Negatives of themselves.
Oh, okay.
So why they were there and how this happened. It could be for a variety of reasons. Like I said, it could have just been a kingdom. I hadn't really decided that for sure yet. Or it could be, as you said, maybe. So something again, Griggs's journey kind of has its staples, right? He constantly tries to meddle with affairs of the keepers, thinking that he is clever enough and smart enough to master what they've already mastered, and failing to recognize that he just keeps failing essentially and making everything worse. But the elves kind of have similar. You notice that throughout sort of the things we've talked about. The elves are really big on reverse engineering things. Like they reverse engineered the chains on the soul forge, right? That's how they figured out how to disconnect them from Grix. They also figured out how to reverse engineer the souls to the bodies they couldn't return, and then they kept that from the soul forge as a punishment. So they're sort of like magic scientists. They know how to really look at the inner workings of magic and find out the other side to it. So I could definitely see perhaps them both pursuing the same super weapon in a sense. It was sort of like a race to see who can trigger it first, and they both had different ideas of what they could do with it. But Grix just got there first, and when he triggered it, they were caught in the result.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that could work with most of what I wrote up here because they would have been. What I have them doing is moving to a spot and working well in isolation because they're like, yes, we're doing something stupid, but we're going to go way away from our people so we don't screw up anything there. They're like, we're going to be totally safe out here, and then he triggers it, and their thing goes off at the same time, kind of like a what do you call it, a quantum effect. And it creates that whole, or fractures everything into that reality, but then they get drawn into it regardless of where they were. Now, Savage Shock did have a good question in the chat here, or a comment. He was saying this goes against the narrative that evil can only destroy, not create, but he created a whole another realm.
Did he?
And then Scrap
Did he
Hermit
create a whole other realm?
says if he broke off a piece of reality and twisted it, then it could work. Interesting. Yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up and see what you think. Because it's possible he did not do anything of the sort. He just broke a mirror into something.
Yeah, it could be. Is it creation? Is it a reflection? Or did he even do the creating? Was it the keepers doing the creating, and he just triggered their mechanism for it? Are the keepers good or evil? Hard to say. But no, I mean your idea still works too. So there's different ways we could go for it, right? Maybe again, same idea. Elves like to reverse engineer things. Maybe they got wind of what Grix was up to. They found a totally separate device, and again, it's sort of like a race of arms, like the race for the atom bomb, right? To see who's going to get to their super weapon first. But maybe when his went off, it also, like you said, set theirs off. So they ended up being victims of the attempt to try to stop him and do the super secret thing up in the tundra they were doing. Yeah, I mean, any of these narratives could work, but the concept basically ends up being the same. They get displaced, and they get trapped in this realm called the underside, and they're negatives of themselves. They're no longer fair skinned like they were on the surface sides. They now have skin the color of roughly the shade of coal. Their hair is no longer beautiful golden, like you experience on the surface. Now it's a pure white or a dark, like jet black, depending. And they are creatures of the night. They are almost nocturnal. They have better perception at night. Their magics are stronger at night, etc., etc. So they get trapped in this realm, and they're trapped there for a while, isolated from the rest of the world, until eventually, as they kind of build a new society inside of the underside, and they start running into the demons there and start interacting and learning, and they figure out there are actually ways to leave the underside back into the real world and vice versa. That they're finally able to then reintroduce themselves into Erudia at some point, but by that time they're very different. They've kind of developed their own traditions and isolation. They might even bear some grudges, because the denizens of Erudia, particularly their elven brethren, really didn't go looking for them. They just kind of presumed them dead and abandoned them to their fate. So they might hold some resentment and bitterness for that.
Makes sense. Now, one thing that I was playing with the ideas. They are the antithesis. They're a mirror version in some ways. They're like a negative image that they are, relatively, hateful. They want to conquer or slay or do the things that you don't expect an elf to want to do. But do you think that could come down also to their mindset? Like they don't have the long-lived kind of a little more calm mindset of an elf who lives hundreds of years. They may be more like, well, yeah, we want to use all that time to do whatever. We're all about lust and ambition, so let's hedonism it up. Or do you think they would be, I mean, there's possibly a room for a lot of different varieties in their society, but do you think that there would be a prevalence of one or the other? Like,
Yeah, I would say they're probably a little bit more hedonistic. They might have the inverse concept where elves are like, hey, we've been alive longer, we have longer memories, we got to be responsible with our age and wisdom and use this information to shepherd the younger races and be custodians of magic and knowledge. um I think the dark elves have a different view of that. Hey, they've almost got the dragon superiority complex. They're like, we've been around longer, we have all this knowledge, we should be using it. And we should be using it for our benefit, not to shepherd lesser beings who are going to just basically blow themselves up in myriads of petty conflicts anyways. We should be ruling essentially, not um, herding cats.
okay, and since now you said demons, right? Not devils.
Hmm.
They work with, because the devils are the ones that shepherd the dead and control infernus, correct? But the
Yeah.
demons are the ones that are just not not very pleasant creatures.
Yeah, no, where devils have a lot more order to them because they fall under the auspices of Mordecai, and they actually have a purpose in the underworld. They have agendas, they have goals and ambitions, but they do have a certain order to things. Demons are a little bit more impulsive and chaotic, um, uh, driven by like instinctual urges rather than any sort of higher philosophy. And they
Okay.
do have long memories themselves, and they hold on to those memories, but they kind of the same concept. They're not, they want to keep that from people and use it to their advantage more so than share it or um, be benevolent with it.
Okay, in which group is it? The devils are the ones that shepherd beings for necromancy.
Yeah, there are some devils that would do that. There is a unique relationship also between Mordecai and, oh man, my brain just frazzled out.
Oh,
Fate goddess.
yeah, Arintha.
Um, Arenta, thank you. Where she also uses some of her, divining powers to let Mordecai know, hey, here's where there are lost souls that need to be shepherded, and like giving them pinpoint locations and things like that. There are some devils that would be sent out perhaps as escorts or retrievals or what have you. Also, Mordecai has relationships with other beings out in the world that sort of up. I think you talked about one last stream, a white dragon.
Yep, yep,
Um, he
exactly.
has connections with that also help shepherd these spirits and stuff because um, so in my world, going to the underworld is a way to kind of preserve your spiritual state. So the downside is when you get there, you're going to be sorted, right? So you're gonna be sorted based on how you lived, and for some people, that's a scary prospect because if you lived wickedly, you're going to end up in the not so nice place. Um, Whereas if you lived a pretty decent normal life, you'll kind of get the middle ground spot. And if you were like not a patron, a paragon of your people and like a hero and some sort of like legendary status, you'll get an even better place above that. And some people fear that judgment, and so their spirits don't head towards the underworld. The problem is when you do that, you're actually signing yourself up for even worse fate because over time your spirit goes mad and you sort of become just angry spiritual being floating out there. and you're nothing like your former self at all. So it's a bad end either way, if you're a wicked person, as it turns out. But yeah. So a lot of times, even when they become the spirits, they get a little fearful about trying to travel to this underworld. So instead of following their natural instincts or natural inclinations to like go there, they wander and linger. And so then Mordecai has to send out people, either devils or um, uh, his various agents, to guide them and shepherd them and convince them, hey, you really should be heading here, because otherwise you're going to become a banshee, or you're going to become um what are the vengeful ones?
Oh, like revenants and bad
Revenants, thank
things,
you. Yes.
that kind of things. Okay.
Revenants, or that sort of thing.
So Savage Talk said, "Wait, the devils collect all the souls?" He put a lot of question marks after that. There are a lot of different psychopomps, but I mean, the devils are the psychopomps, I think, of the bad people, and herald or kind of bring them in, because you have the three parts of the underworld that Mordecai kind of rules over, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the devils, most of their job, most of their function is inside of their layer of the underworld. They don't do a lot outside, but there are some that do get sent out for certain, like especially if it's like an area where he doesn't really have an agent to deal with, or someone to guide people there, or heroes he can call upon, or whatever. Then yeah, he's gonna send devils, um, and they'll they're lawful and obedient or whatever to him and their superiors, so they'll go out there and do it. But most of their work is there. They also have some of their own self interests as well. The ruler of that layer isn't exactly fully loyal to Mordecai, as you'll find out. He's got his own devices. So he'll send out devils and stuff to make contracts with mortals, tempt them into paths that will make them more in line for their souls to end up fueling the third layer versus the others. And
Yeah, good
so they
luck,
like to promise.
warlocks.
Yeah, yeah. So they like to promise power in exchange for certain either acts of cruelty or depravity, or sometimes even in exchange for pledges of souls and things like that.
So, Fantastic Sarcastic in the chat said, "Queen of the Devils, that is relationships with other beings. Erudi met my ex."
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. Very sorry. In this case, though, your ex is male. I got questions.
Well, he did say queen. He did say queen.
Oh, Queen of the Devils. Queen
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Devils. Oh, I got you. I got you. I thought he was talking about the person I was referring to that's adversarial to Mordecai.
No, I think he's thinking more along the lines of, oh my gosh, what's her name? She was in the Devil movie with Brendan Fraser. Elizabeth Hurley. There we go. There is his Queen of
Oh,
the Devils.
yeah.
She was the devil.
I know technically that wasn't a quality movie, but I really liked that movie for more than just the two reasons you're thinking, chat.
Yes,
I
it
thought that was
was
a pretty funny little movie.
a fun movie. It was stupid and fun. And Michaela says, "Hail! Oh man, we have a Fed already. She just can't.
Well,
she can't help it."
I'm imparting all sorts of wonderful information, Queen Shirt. I think you'll like it.
Do you think with these fallen elves, the dark elves, elves don't really, I mean, I know that in some mythologies, like banshees are like elven females instead of just women who become a ghost. But do you think that the dark elves would work more in necromantic magic, maybe blood magic? Would they also stay away from that? Are they affected by the corruption of magic the same way as other beings?
Yep. So corruption. Speaking of the mana stream we're getting into now, it affects everyone, even gods. So Grix, for example, is the only deity who has fallen to the corruption. Ultimately, he is the alignment true evil. He's the only deity that has the alignment true evil. So even gods are susceptible to it. So of course, yeah, the dark elves are just as susceptible to it.
Okay. Good.
As far as blood magic goes, I mean, blood magic can really be done by anyone. I wouldn't say this culture is like devoted to it in any like sizable way, but could there be some? Sure.
Okay. And last question, well, not the last question. Last question of this line of reasoning is I'm working on a couple of ideas of some NPCs and people that could be like thrown into the lore as dark elves. Um, do you think you could have a dark elf lich and not have it be weird? Or something along those lines.
Yeah. So lichdom is going to be similar but different compared to some of the other systems. And the whole art of necromancy is a little bit different in the system. One, because you can do it in a way that's not evil, which isn't a common option. But two, it's just that the reason it happens is basically those who go down to be damned, they become like a workforce in that third layer. In that workforce of souls that's being sort of tormented endlessly and being used for labor for the rest of their existence. They're doing all sorts of things. They're working on projects for various gods. They're maintaining Mordecai's realm and you know, participating in certain rituals. But they also get leased. So when somebody uses necromantic magics, a lot of times what they're doing is bargaining with devils or using their magics to literally snatch a soul from that third layer and borrow it. That soul is actually animating the corpse. It's not magic like energies animating the corpse. There's an actual soul that goes in there.
I thought when I read that, when you were writing, you wrote that stuff before I read it, I was like, I do really like that because it's basically they're going into the corral and they're like, you know, the claw machine, like I've been chosen, and now you're like, here you go.
Yeah, and that soul experiences everything that that body experiences. So this is part of being damned. Is when you get summoned this way, you feel just as if that body were still alive and fresh. The pain of getting hit, stabbed, all that stuff, you still feel that. And then once the form you've inhabited is destroyed, you get sent back to the third layer where you came from.
And would that be like if it's somebody says, "Hey, I'm animating that specific skeleton," it would grab that person's soul from wherever, or would it just say, "Hey, yeah, it's a dwarf that's dead on the ground, but he was a good guy, so we can't really go grab him. Well, we could grab that guy."
Yeah, so yeah, it only really pulls them from that third layer of the damned. You can't pull from the other two layers, and the soul doesn't have to match the body type. Also, it can be any soul. It'll animate it.
Okay.
And typically, you're not gonna be able to like grab a specific soul. So like you can't. If you know your great grandfather was a wicked man who did blah blah blah, you can't eternally torment him by continuously taking his soul, unless perhaps maybe you've made some sort of devil or deal with a devil. Maybe
That was my next question, is like both of the sides of that coin, because while we're talking about that, the idea that you need to use a spell to do certain things for all these, it makes all sense. But if you actually say speak with dead with the corpse, you're gonna get a corpse speaking with the knowledge of whatever that person was. So in that case, it might actually be opening a communication to the actual soul.
Be a specific connection.
But it wouldn't be somebody sitting there playing a game of telephone like, I got stuck in this guy's body. Okay, here's my note cards. When they ask me these questions, I got to answer like that guy. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Yep.
Yeah, you would be convening directly with the soul. One's kind of like opening a phone line to the person. The other's actually saying, "Hey, we need to borrow one of these." In which case, they're just going to give you what's next in line. You know, what's the next soul that they're handing out.
Okay,
and that Mordecai has he has two. You know, if you're a servant of Mordecai, or you have certain other denominations that allow it, that Mordecai is friendly with. It's considered sanctioned. So you are with permission and the blessings of Mordecai borrowing those souls, and he understands it's for a purpose, either serving his ends or the ends of good, in which case these souls are being used. And when you do that, the undead actually get a special rune that's marked on their head that symbolizes, hey, this is a sanctioned undead.
And then a couple of questions people were asking, like, will the soul experience pleasure?
Probably not. I can't imagine unless. Okay, this is probably getting into unsanctioned territory. If your summoner is a necrophiliac and deciding to have some fun with those corpses, maybe. But that's an unpleasant thought. I don't know if I really want to go there.
And the other question was the soul mechanics are so interesting. No reincarnation?
Reincarnation is possible. Reincarnation is possible. Resurrection in general is possible. That people can be pulled back if you've got powerful enough magic. There are systems in place for that. But specifically for animating the undead and borrowing a soul, it only comes from that third layer. Whereas reincarnation or resurrection can be from any layer, even from the damned. You could be a bad person and still be brought back to life.
Okay.
If you have the magics to do it. So those are very powerful magics and rare, but you can definitely do them.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the unsanctioned end of it is people who have mastered ways of typically through bargaining with devils or cheating their magic, snatching souls from the underworld without Mordecai's blessing, and that is another thing. Mordecai generally abhors this practice if it's not being sanctioned, and so he has directives. He has a paladin order that's even dedicated to like hunting down these what's the A word for like a rogue person? God damn it.
An
These
apostate?
rogue, what is that? Apostate, thank you. These basically apostate necromancers who aren't approved, these unofficial necromancers. That there's a paladin order that's dedicated to hunting down unsanctioned undead and destroying them because it's an insult to Mordecai and it's disrespectful to those who've passed, essentially.
Okay, and then when a lich does it, he's basically taking his soul and hiding it in something, so off limits to
So
everybody.
Yeah, so a lich is like really cheating. Like there's no such thing as a sanctioned lich. So
Okay.
he's not just borrowing a soul and puppeting an undead body. He's also storing his soul and binding it to this borrowed soul to create his own immortality. So he's trapping another soul for his own extended survival, essentially.
Right. Okay. So, and now here's the thing. In one of my campaigns in the past, I had the dwarves, long live race, that were doing all their things. What a dwarf could do in there is they're like, the need is great for my people. I will sacrifice my eternal peace to help my people, and they allowed their soul to be bound to an item, a construct, a thing for all eternity, instead of going to their just reward, because they were like, I think it's important enough that I put myself here as a beacon for future generations. It will be a source of knowledge. Like the idea of a holocron or the idea of like a defender or even a weapon or something. That they're like, I'm willing to do this because I want them to have this more than me having my peace. What do you think about that sort of an idea? Would Mordecai be like, you're gonna go crazy, or
So this would come down to magics, right? So first off, again, this is anything that involves souls and keeping them in perpetuity. That is going to have a sanctioned and unsanctioned element. So certainly you can get versions of this that are blessed by Mordecai and sanctioned. So if it is for like the betterment of whatever race or the knowledge of preservation or some sort of good aspect, then there's a good chance you can get a priest or a high powerful warlock or something of Mordecai to create something like this. If you do it unsanctioned, you're doing without his blessing, and you're probably consorting with devils or some really dark magics. In either case, normally a soul goes mad when it's not connected to the underworld. If you're preserving it in an object like this, you're using some kind of magic that would cause the soul to be preserved instead of going mad.
okay?
And I would say in most cases sanctioned, that's always going to be a guaranteed effect. So if you're making a sanctioned weapon or a sanctioned holocron, quote unquote, in those cases the magic is like guaranteed to work. Your soul's going to be preserved, and you're not going to go mad. You're going to be kept in this item, whether it be a weapon or a knowledge item or whatever. If you do it unsanctioned, there's a risk that the protection doesn't work. You're still bound to the item, but you might go mad inside the item. So you could end up with like a corrupted holocron, so to speak, with a spirit inside that's gone mad, and maybe holds back on the knowledge he has, or only speaks it out in riddles, or will only divine the information to you in exchange for achieving personal agendas that he wants done in the real world, things like that.
Cool. And you could account for like a cursed sentient weapon, I suppose, if the person it was unsanctioned. It's like, oh dear, don't pick up that sword. Don't do it.
Right.
Okay. And oh, interesting. FXKTP2 says, how does this all work with vampires, if at all?
I'm still ironing out the vampire side of it a little bit because there's something they're not quite a lich, but they're also not strictly mindless undead. They do have intelligence. And so I'm figuring out how they fit into this. I haven't quite ironed down their lore yet. There are vampires, though. That much is accurate.
Okay.
There are some unpolished areas of the lore. So if we get to that kind of stuff and I just don't know the answers yet, that's basically what you're going to get.
No, that's totally valid because, yeah, there's a lot of threads here. Lots and lots, which is why I always have so many fun questions for you. So back with the Dark Elves, what I'm playing around with is the idea that definitely they, because they love, like you said, re-engineering, reverse engineering things, they got hold of something. You know, maybe Davila helped get something away when she came back after she realized he was going to never accept her, and said, hey, he's working on this thing. And she brought one of them back, and they're like, we'll take that. And that's what they took up north. And they're like, we are going to totally figure this all out with her help. And they're like, yeah, this is going to totally work. But he set the thing off, and it also set theirs off. And she's like, well, I'm out of here. Bye. They all got sucked into the other underworld. But it's possible. I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that she could have felt really bad for them and tried. She was like the only god who tried to do anything for them, even though she's, you know, not like a loving and caring god. But that's another reason that's possible that they kind of really fell extra into their hedonistic natures. They're like, yeah, she cares about us ish. I'm still trying to play that one around in my mind. Not sure.
Yeah, there's ways that could work. I don't know how to. I don't feel like she would typically be the kind of person to advocate for somebody in that way, or go back and.
I think more along the lines, what she would have been doing was trying to say, "Oh no, my pets," or whatever these people, and more along the lines of, "Could I have a whole group of my own pets? Can I have them?" I don't know.
Yeah, it could be something like that. Maybe because she did play both sides during the God Killer War. So maybe she was kind of looking at a way of, okay, I don't know how this is going to go now. These things are kind of teetering both ways. Maybe I should have my own backup plan in case this whole Pantheon thing falls apart. So maybe, yeah, she does see them as pets, and maybe she did make visits to them. There does become the complication because, as I mentioned before, the underside's not empty, and there are some very powerful entities down there called the Undergods.
Yeah.
And I haven't. I'm not ready to like reveal a lot of details about like them in specific. But what I will say is, just like everything else, they're an echo of what was already in the world. So there is a Undergod version of Davila. There is a Undergod version of Kika, and Undergod version of Vulcan, and so on and so forth, but they're very different from their counterparts on the surface. They're not truly gods. They're more like powerful, shadowy titans, but they represent those roles in that realm.
Okay. And it's possible
it's
she
possible.
never went there, but she just appeared to them as, you know, like, I'm projecting myself to you through this crazy place because I'm not about to go in there with you. Maybe she is the one who helped lead them out. Who knows?
Yeah.
With the help, I don't know if she would have.
Could be that too.
Yeah, because she could have dealt with demons and such. Yeah. Interesting. I kind of like that idea. I just like her having her fingers in all kinds of little pies and things that she really should not be screwing around with, but she can't help herself. Not as bad as Grix, but she just like touching everything.
Yeah, and she was very much she's a self-preservation mindset kind of person. So she went back and forth between the Pantheon and Grix during the whole war, and no doubt she probably made a lot of backup plans for all of the potential outcomes that could befall her. So
Yeah. Okay. Loss of potential assets could be your thinking. Crescent said, "Yeah." It's like, "Oh man, I worked really hard. I want my pets back." Maybe vampires need blood to keep their soul in their body to do some sort of curse. God hated a specific group of people, specifically those became the first vampires. That was FX KTP2. Oh no, fantastic sarcastic. No, no soul split by two lesbian half elf witches or lesbian elf witches. No, no. You're out of the will, fantastic sarcastic. If souls brought back as undead could experience happiness when someone, there could be potential soul trying to escape through the summoning. Oh, it would be interesting though. I suppose a guy would be like, there's just one soul down there who's always like, "Oh no, you chose me again," and the devils are like, "No, we sent you back last week." He's like, "No, pretty sure that was someone else. Send me back up." He just wants some sunlight.
throw me in, coach.
Throw me. I'm ready, coach. You were just in line a minute ago, but you got a mustache on now. What are you?
Generally, there is a time limit on that too. So when you summon the undead, you don't get that spirit to animate your body or corpse or whatever indefinitely. There's an expiration date on that. So when that time runs out, the body ceases to be animated and the soul returns from whence it came.
Right. Okay. I volunteers tribute.
I do think, I mean, like I said, I haven't really fleshed out the whole vampire thing entirely. I do think it's going to originate from some sort of curse. I just got to figure out how that interplays with the idea of Mordecai and being unsanctioned, because I don't think it's possible for there to be a sanctioned vampire in my mind. So I think that would make all vampire unsanctioned.
And it could come back to the whole lycanthropy, the twisted version of, the shape-shifting lycanthropes that Grix was trying to work on that turned out badly, as opposed to the nice ones that Kika has. So it's possible he had a hand in that as well.
Yeah.
I have to think about that one.
How I want that to work. Yeah, I do think it'll originate from some kind of curse from some sort of being, whether it be a god or otherwise.
It's all about Xerath. They just got fire in their blood. They have to keep burning the blood away. They have to keep quenching it with blood.
Yes. Eventually, I got to talk to you about Ariandor versus Nya, by the way.
Okay.
I want to flesh out their differences a little bit more.
That'll be fun because we got the nature and wilds versus agriculture and hunting and whatnot. Yeah, it's like we're putting down a field.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then Xerath comes and burns it all anyway.
Yeah. Also true.
Jerk. Let's see here. I had another question on this. I was going to ask you about. We talked about the fun thing we talked about, and I'm not going to bring that up. Is we talked about Xander and his kind of change that he went through by the end of the God Killer War, and how he changed his perspective on justice. And I think that's going to be really cool to fit in somewhere in some of the stuff that I'm writing up here. When we have, this is what I was going to ask. I've written up a whole bunch of stuff about different creatures and stuff we have in here. They're intrinsically linked to this world in one way, shape, or another. Would they be in a mini bestiary in the back of this book, or do you think they would just go in the monster tome that you'd be doing and just say, hey, if you want specifics on the lore, the deep lore, you go to this book?
I'm not sure. For who?
Like the God Killer bees or those kind of things that are like specific to the world. It's like, I guess, does it make sense to have God Killer bees in a non-Erudia setting? Not really, but people could use them. Or some of the other creatures that we've written up, like the little the wormling, the little drakes that fly around the fishing villages, the caustic strands, that are like the seagull equivalent of little wormlings. Would these kind of creatures, since they're kind of specific to the setting, be in here, or would you want them like generally available to anybody that buys the general book? I'm not sure what to.
It'd probably be a healthy mix of both. Not everything. So, so chats where not everything we discuss, even on like the lore that Frost is writing, will appear in like the first set of books. A lot of it will be saved for later books. So, for example, you might get a specific adventure or adventure path, whatever format we decide to go with. Um, and that book will have its own little mini bestiary at the end of the unique creatures that were featured in it. So,
Cool.
for example, the God Killer bees, right? They might be something that is just a staple creature in the actual Tome of Threats, or it could be a unique creature that comes up in an adventure that is unique to a certain region. And then if you've bought that adventure, you now have the stats of that creature and can use it over and over again. I have not decided yet if I want stat blocks in the actual setting book, but it could be. There could be like a little mini bestiary at the end of that.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
So that part I got to figure out. But there are going to be some creatures that will have variants in the Tome of Threats, and it'll probably reference the Erudian lore, but will also just describe the creature generally, so they can be put and dropped into any setting.
Nice. Cool. That answers that. That helps. Because yeah, I know at one point you talked about no furries, this and that, no whatevers. I did write up on the Umbrella Atoll the kind of the idea of the bullywug creatures, like the toad, the kind of sea like faring little creatures that brew things underwater and stuff. If it turns out we want to make something that's not like frog or toad like, if you're just like no, we'll find something else. We'll find a different way to make them.
I'm not as against it for like monster creatures. I think it makes more sense for non-playable races and monster creatures, particularly if they're not going to be. What I really I hesitate towards are things that are like it's basically just a human with another animal head put it on it to satisfy some fetishes this furry curiosity.
Yep.
That's not really my thing. I don't need like a human female body with a nice breast that just either has a lizard head, an owl head, or a bear head. You know what I'm saying? Like, if those things are going to exist, they're going to have their own physicality. They're going to be unique, and most likely they're going to be monstrous. Something like like you just described, the bullywogs or whatever. Those aren't strictly humanoid-like. They're going to be more hunched over, almost creature-like, but with some humanoid visual cues, and that's totally fine.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, I think it'll be a fine line of distinction and not turning him into, I hate saying these kind of words together, sexy bullywugs or sexy whatever. It's like no, nobody needs that. Let's just stick with people.
Yeah, and so they should not be appealing to us. They should be appealing to each other in their own special family, but if we're finding them attractive, either A, we're doing something wrong, or B, there's something wrong with you.
FX said, so this game is not for Noel.
It's not. And by the way, chat, tune in for Mummy's Mask this Friday. I promised you guys last Friday that I was going to write a song for Noelle called Yub That Nub, based on her romance with her Ewok husband, and I did, and it's amazing, and it'll be debuting on that episode.
Oh, good God. I mean, yay!
It's amazing. Trust me.
I just got this little bit of throw up in my throat right now. Ew. One thing that did come up when we were talking on, I don't even know what stream it was on, one of the streams we talked on, is the idea of like transporting things around the world, like horses and mundane vehicles and all this kind of stuff. And my response to most of that is literally this is how far a thing can travel in this many days. This is how much a wagon costs. And if it's difficult terrain, it takes longer. And leave it at that and let the DM decide if they want to deal with it. The same with money systems and all these things. So when I've talked about anything in the lore that has anything to do with like a metric or a real world scenario where you'd have to figure out how much things are worth in different cultures, I generally fall back to let the DM figure that out in their own world, rather than setting a huge standard with like a money changing table and a this and a that and like the 14 different languages these people speak. And like, dig deep if you want to in your game, but I guess we'll go as far as you feel comfortable with that stuff in the books.
Yeah, so certainly for the Seeker's Rule book and the Erudia setting book, it's not going to go that deep. There is a money system, obviously. It's going to be platinum, gold, silver, copper. I'm not dealing with Electrum.
What?
That's your currency, and you can also use gemstones and things like that, of course. So that'll exist, but in terms of things like exchange rates and foreign coin and how that all works out and stuff, no, that's not going to be. That's not. First of all, that's not going to be accounted for in the rules, and it's not even going to be accounted for in your setting book. Now, if we go on, so people understand what Frost is writing. He is writing. It's sort of a setting companion, and it covers the broad region of the Godlands, and it basically sets the stage for what is this area like, and it breaks down each of like the cities, right? It'll say, hey, this is I don't know, this is Frostville. And Frostville, this is their main export. That's what they're known for. This is how the city was formed. The leadership is this, the government is that. It basically just kind of breaks it down in a broad sense so that you know what's there and where you can send people, what the history is. But it's not going to break it down deeper than that. You're not going to get like a whole expose of what inns are in Frostville, what temples are there specifically. You're not going to get a map of the capital palace. And if it's a place that has its own currency system, you're not going to get like a conversion chart. Where you're going to see stuff like that is when we dig deeper. So if there's an adventure, for example, that takes place in Frostville, then perhaps in that adventure, either A, the adventure itself will break it down more, or when we release the adventure, there'll be a supplemental campaign guide specifically for Frostville. That'll have a big map of Frostville with it broken down into the various parts. It'll talk about the currencies. What is the military specifically like there? That sort of stuff. So this campaign guide is the broad overview that you can have, and you just know the area and the generalities of everything.
Don't have to cover everything, otherwise we'll never get it to you guys, because then we'd be drawing every single house and every single building and every single village.
Yeah, and you'll hear Frost talk about a lot of stuff as he's typing, and he's coming with notes, and a lot of it you might not ever see it in the final book, but it's good to have those notes, because when he references back to it later when we're making other stuff, we can then dig deeper and have all this extra lore already ready.
Yep, and there's a lot of it. We have a ton of stuff. I tried to search our DMs. It never finished responding because it was trying to index everything. Like, well, I can't actually search our DMs. Good job. We have said too much. That was good. That's a good thing. So I even started putting some of those in separate little docs so I could reference them a little more easily and actually do searches. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff out here. We have a ton of lore. And we have a ton of things going back and forth between us. But I know that when you keep like coming up with something on the fly, you're like, "Oh, I want to write a thing about this," and then you'll send me like a DM, and it's got like 8 paragraphs or 10 paragraphs on this creature. I was like, "Oh my god, more!"
Yeah, there's always more.
There's always
and
more.
Even that, that'll be trimmed down, right? When I make the whatever those things appear in, when I write it, some of it'll be expanded, but a lot of it'll be shrunk. Because I put a lot of extra detail in there that it's just notes for us. Like I try to, at least with every major race or major location or whatever that I give you details on, to have some sort of mythology attached to it, either a legendary creature or some sort of tale about the place or some significant event that occurs. That might not even necessarily be in the book itself, but it's something for us to keep in mind about, hey, this is something cool we're going to get to explore later.
Yeah, and those, like you said, those could come out in the adventures. They could come out in whatever other stuff you're putting out eventually. It's going to be so much fun, and I can't wait to see this stuff in people's hands and what they do with it. But also, just I want to see more things drawn too, like people writing up like, "Hey," or drawing the picture of place X or person Y or whatever, and start seeing those things visualized so people can start looking at them and going, oh. But I have to say, one of the things I love about what you're doing with this and what we're working on is giving that sense of progression to everyone who is supporting us and coming to the streams and coming to things, because it's not just you working in a void, me working in a void, Effie working in a void, people working in voids. It's showing people progress, that this is going towards something. There are deadlines, there are all kinds of things coming up, and it's being worked on diligently. So I've had a number of people even just say, this is so cool. Like, I don't get to tune in all the time, but just seeing progress and knowing you guys are doing all this stuff is so much fun. So I'm like, that makes me happy.
Yeah, and there were some questions. Yeah, look, we get feedback, positive, negative, confused, the whole wide range of it.
Yep.
And, I've had some feedback about why would you moneygate this? Other people don't do that, etc. Which, first off, is false. A lot of people do this sort of thing. But
Yes.
also, we're kind of in uncharted territory. I tried to compare this to somebody so they understood, because they were saying that, for example, DC-20 and Cosmere and stuff, they put their material out prior to their game launch. But I was like, you guys don't understand what you're looking at in terms of game development phase. What you're watching us do right now is the part you actually never see.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at with Cosmere, right? Cosmere at launch, yes, they put out a free PDF with some rules in it and a bunch of information, but they did that at launch, literally when they were ready to launch the game, right? They didn't 3 years ago, when they came up with this RPG and started working on it, share this stuff with you. They probably didn't even share this stuff with their investors who are paying them money. So what we're doing is we're working on this now and saying, hey, you guys are helping fund this development. In return, you're getting to see everything up front. We're showing you the process. You're getting a say in it. Also, if you go to the forums and give us feedback, we're implementing that feedback and saying, well, hey, it's a good thing we saw how they reacted to this now, so this isn't what we produced later. When we say it's a game for you, that's what we mean. It's not necessarily a game by committee. You're not writing it, but your feedback is actually genuinely considered.
Yeah. And I have a question for you. I haven't gotten to go back to see the whole stream. Why were you guys thinking I was working on Cosmere? What was that whole thing about? I missed it. You guys are like, you sure you're not working on this? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know if it was just a joke. Yeah, you guys were talking about Cosmere on the Wednesday night thing, or one of the things you guys looked at it, and somebody brought up, they're like,
there's a picture. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. Because we were scrolling down the picture of the people who actually worked on the book. Because I was like, I don't know. I think they're probably decent people. I don't think it's a big like woke crowd working on this project. And then we looked at some of the people, were like, oh, maybe I could be wrong on that. But then like the last picture was this guy who took a picture with his cat and he had long hair. And so the joke was, oh, wait a minute, Frost is playing both teams here. He's also
everywhere. Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, JT, when you say Savage Talk said, hear me out, there needs to be some sort of Savage Lands filled with assholes. I was like, that's the Wildlands that Jarek Thunderaxe is patrolling. It's full of crazy dwarves and orcs. So you got your wish. And Chris Sant says,
definitely out there.
Erudi can write something long form in a DM that's not 30 little broken up sentences. Well, yes, but I mean, technically he writes this stuff separately and pastes it in there. Does that count?
Yeah, let's just say my writing doesn't necessarily start out the way it gets to Frost. It probably looks an awful lot like our DMs. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of scattered stuff that I end up polishing it up. So.
Yep.
And there's something else I'll have to talk to you about at some point, Frost. And this is not really an official announcement, chat, so don't take it as the gospel yet. But we are talking to Effie about her coming on for the final 2 covers as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
She up the Seeker's Rule book. She might also be doing the Tome of Threats as well as the Erudi campaign guide.
Cool.
So at some point, I gotta. I try to take her into consideration too when we're picking the artwork, and she's had to draw a lot of caverns lately. She's sick of drawing caverns, and was hoping maybe we could offer her something that's not a cave or an old dwarf ruin or something like that. So I got to think of a spot in Erudi of these locations that we have been coming up with that would be interesting and dynamic on a cover, show something that's unique and cool without being boring and not be a cavern. So we're to think about
Not
that.
a
It's something to
cavern.
brainstorm.
Oh man, that's crazy talk. Everything has to be caverns. No, that would be cool. uh, I was just waiting until the Erudi is typing ... stops before I answer. Okay, Chris, nice.
Wow.
Well done. Nice. Uh, I'm gonna ask you a totally different question here because I people see me when I'm working on this stuff. I'm working in the 2-column format now because that's kind of like the idea that you gave me for doing this. When you're writing, when you do this stuff, are you doing it like the way I'm doing this, or are you doing it like, hey, I just open a new document and just write something down and name it blah? I'm just curious about your writing methodology here, what you're doing.
I write wherever I can write. There are sometimes you can ask Chrysanth. I actually use her DMs as a notepad because I'm just always doing stuff. I'm like
There you
I'm
go.
rarely just able to sit down and do this. So sometimes I'll be at work. Sometimes I'll be in my car. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of a stream or whatever. And so I just got to find wherever I can to put that information down so I don't lose it. But yeah, often I'll throw it into a Word doc or I'll open up a Google Doc or something and just throw it on there and then grab it later and copy paste it into my works and adjust it so it makes sense with everything else.
Okay.
Like there's a few times, most of the times when I'm watching this, I'm at work. So whenever you come up with something and it inspires me or whatever, I just open a Word doc and start plugging away. And then when I think I have something that's cool or exciting, then I immediately, while you're still streaming, shoot it over to you in your DMs.
Nice.
So yeah, it just depends on where I'm at and what I'm doing.
Cool. Yeah, I try to be organized because I like have a specific folder under all of my writing that is also saved to my Google drives and everything, so it's mirrored and it's shared, so it backs itself up automatically up in the cloud. But I also have it locally. But I have in this one folder just for this stuff, I have 15 separate documents, and some of them are like 22 megs of text, which is, if you know about text, people, that's a lot of text. That's a big text document. And other ones are really small. They're like a meg or so. But I have literally 15 different ones for all these different things, and I have them very specifically named so I can come find them later because I started making so many notes. I'm like, where did I put this idea? So I started renaming them all so I knew what they were at or what they had in them, because I was even starting to lose track of some of these. Because normally when I'm writing like the first book that I wrote, it was a document, and I did V1, V2, V3 when I did revisions, and it was a smaller folder, and I had reference and stuff. I have lots of different subjects and lots of different things we talked about, so I spread them all over the place. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably get organized. It's
a lot of information, and you're kind of trying to create like almost a world Bible across, and it's hard to do when it's not all finished and formatted, So,
exactly. Fantastic, sarcastic.
I've got...
Sorry, I just read that Chrysanth's DMs are the best notepad, except when it starts talking back. Why does her notepad have a death counter?
True. These are both accurate statements. See, if you get a death counter, you're lucky. I just go straight. She goes straight to the death. The counter's just skipped. So, but yeah. So for me, I've got the Seeker's Rulebook and the Beast area as a Word document. I've got them broken into chapters using like in Word. You've got little subheaders or things. If you pick those, it makes them into an actual outline or whatever. And I've got them delineated that way. But also, I've got a scattering of about like 50 something just like singular Word documents that are like grix.doc or darkelves.doc. Like I got a bunch of shit in there, man. It's a lot.
Nice. Well, I mean, at least you've got them named properly. It's better than having them like 1, 2, 7, Tuesday, something, something, something. Yeah, having a name on things so you can come back to them later is really important. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many times I've come back to something and just realized that I don't remember what document it was in, so I have to open up like 14 different docs just to find a little snippet. I hate that.
Yeah. But these dark elves, you had an idea of where you wanted them to be, location-wise?
Yeah, so I have the area. If you remember the kind of rough idea of the map I have, the Godlands kind of stretches along the whole coast from kind of the southwest to the northeast, and there's mountains, and the dwarves are up there. And in the north part of the mountains are some of the rougher dwarves that are like the barbarian-ish dwarves. They're kind of the hill dwarves that actually defend the backside of the kingdom from up there. And those wild lands up there heading up into the tundra and the taiga, that's where the orc nomads kind of just wander back and forth following our herds. But farther north than that, that is where, you know, it turns into, you know, the glacial realms and whatnot, where nobody really lives. That was where, in one of these places where they found a keeper's vault buried deep beneath the ice, that they decided, we're going to take this thing that Davila gave us and experiment on it to see if we can unlock its secrets before Grix gets it working. And then he triggered it. Their little spot of, I don't know, hidden fortress, whatever they had up there in the icy area, just imploded into the underside. And that was where it was, and that's where they ended up going through. And when they escaped and came back out, that place is still there with kind of a weakening, because I know you said that there are spots where it's weak between the main world and the underside, and this is a spot where they managed to come back out because of how they got dragged in. And that's where they built their little place of power up here. Kind of the idea of the 30 days of night, like it's almost always night up there. So they love it. It's cold, it's bitter, they don't care, but they can launch out into the world and do all their things. And this might be where that lich is specifically. I'm still formulating some stuff in my head because it feels fun and weird and poetic to have these dark, evil elves in this frozen wasteland with their own little kingdom and whatever they're doing up there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
It's distant, but with the ability to, you know, use teleport and get to other places, and the fact that, you know, they can reverse engineer things, and they're smart, and they're also not ethical, so they don't care how they do things. They can probably get other places in the world relatively easily if they need to.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Which I think could be fun. Yeah, and I don't think these are going to be the same people. In a way, it was also, in my mind, it was going to be a poetic justice from Grix's standpoint. If the person who was like, turned themselves into the lich up here and is leading these people is also the main architect of the person who actually figured out how to break the Soulforge free. But they weren't satiated with, you know, that knowledge and everything they had. They're like, we can go farther. We're going to take this thing. We're going to totally get this guy. And then everything turned on his head. So that person did an amazing thing, but is also now this horrific being that just only wants personal power and personal gain.
That tends to be how it goes when you delve too deeply into the mana stream.
Yeah. So I'm still threading all that stuff together in my head, but I think that could be a fun through story. It might be things that it would have to be revealed through an adventure path, because there's no way somebody's just going to come across something and go, wow, somebody wrote down this whole story. That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of this lore will probably show up in different stories and things like that for sure. For example, in the White Dragon lore, there's a chunk in there specifically about a certain legendary entity, a dragon, and that's probably something that'll be discovered through some sort of adventure path or something like that. But it ties into what we're talking about now. This particular being has contact with these elves that we're referring to.
Okay. Yeah, and that's basically the idea, was that it would be however they work themselves into this horrible position and however they got mirrored, they are now back in the world and they are a force to be reckoned with. And I guess finding out how they're going to be used best in terms of the world lore would be well, for future adventure paths or for individual DMs to come up with. Like you give them the seed of an idea and say they're isolated, but they have an ability to do this. Somebody may just base an entire campaign off that nugget of an idea and just be like, oh, I could do it. So
Yeah, certainly, there's probably offshoots of them that have gone to different areas of the world and
Yep.
individual ones that are broken off and stuff. The existence of half versions of Dark Elves will also exist. So that all those things will be out there. They're just a very different society than, say, the Drow. And I definitely wanted to establish that, yes, there are Dark Elves, but they're not Drow.
Yep.
They're very different from what the Drow are.
And I guess that will be something that we can cover later to talk about, because they're not going to be a plain Dark Elf is not going to be playable, but a half might be. Or is a half even playable? I guess is the question.
Half will be. So
Okay.
You won't be able to play the monstrous races themselves, but you can play half offshoots of them.
Okay.
So the half dark elf will be an option, as will half orcs, for example. But playing as a full orc is not an option.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, the reason that I was asking about that is because, obviously people feel always drawn, like, I'm going to make a good version of one. I'm like, okay, have fun. That's not how that really works, but okay. And
Yeah,
it just feels, it really cheapens the idea that if you have an iconic legendary character that did it once, that everybody's like, well, I'm going to do it too and be unique just like them. Like, that's not how uniqueness works. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
exactly. And a lot of this is part of the issue I've got with what stuff they've done with 5e. And so, for example, the orcs in our game are going to remain brutish. They're going to be orcs. It's not the same backstory, all right? It's not. They're not born out of the calf of some demon lord and raised as a rampaging army, and that's why they're evil, and they should stay evil, in my opinion, because of that. But even in our setting, they're just biologically different. They're engineered to fight. Their instinct is to kill and war. And yes, they are sentient beings, but every creature, including us, are victims of our own biology. There's not much you can do to betray your biology to an extreme extent like that. And so when your actual makeup, your biology, the chemicals in your body, your brain, and all of that stuff triggers a certain way, like, hey, this person just flipped me off. I am in war mode now. That is what my body chemicals do. I can't really do anything about that. That's kind of the same with like orcs, right? So orcs are always going to be this warlike, brutish, tribal people. They're not going to probably be having a cup of tea with you and discussing the finer things of life
No.
and living in a polite society. That's just not something they are capable of biologically.
Right. And they probably look at us humans and think, ew, furries, because they, they're these weird, almost attractive versions of them, but they're kind of ugly and like, oh, ugh. They probably think that anybody who would lay down with a human is like, what the hell is wrong with you? You weirdo?
Yeah.
Oh, that's disturbing to think about. Sorry. Now I got that in my head.
It
I'm like,
is interesting to think of the different viewpoint for sure.
oh my god, FXKTP2 said, someday I'm going to figure out how you say your name. Y'all see the poor innocent orc family in Rings of Power? No. No innocent orc family in Rings of Power. That doesn't exist. The whole show doesn't exist. Just saying. Ugh. Sorry. Every time I hear Rings of Power, I just shudder. Raises the hackles on the back of my neck.
What the hell is that? Sam?
Yeah, because they were joking about the Ice Lich Queen, and I said her name is Karen. Shadow Warden is like, where? Mm-hmm.
Oh god.
Chris Hansen's gonna buy steel-toed boots just to punish you for that statement. So back to the elves. One more thing I was gonna ask you is, since they, and you can defer me on this, you can tell me, we'll talk about this offline in DMs and stuff. If they are a product of the mirror, or they're products of the real world who got mirrored, and sure, they're under gods and stuff. If there are dark elves on the surface now prowling around doing things, do they have clerics? Would the actual normal gods ever have truck with any of them, or is it literally they could only get power by dealing with the under gods or making pacts with demons and such? And like
Yeah,
I said,
so no, they,
you
they
can
can they
defer
can
it,
definitely
but
have clerics. They
okay,
can have clerics, and they can they still answer to, or are subject to the powers of the normal gods. The undergods themselves aren't truly gods. They're echoes of the gods. They are powerful entities. Technically, at this point, I'm considering them as demons. But they're not truly gods. They can't divine power from them in that way.
okay, and that's the thing that I like most about the idea of the under gods is when you think about things in the real world, people are like, oh no, there's a ghost, there's this or that. I tend to be along the same lines, think along the same lines as Savage Shock, that it's like basically it's just demons doing stuff, bad things. A lot of that is really horrible. That it would make a lot of sense for these things to literally just be a demonic force or whatever, and they're like, yay, I got power. At what cost? Whatever. I don't really care. I'm in it for the moment. Unlike, other people who'd be like, you don't want to do that. Like, why not? My soul, I'm not using it right now. Like, okay, have fun. But again, a dark elf they're not going to care about that stuff. They're going to be a very dangerous opponent, I feel, because not only do they have the instincts of something more along the lines of like what an orc would have, of like, hey, it's personal power, I want to fight, I want to do the things, but they have the benefit of a long life and wisdom, twisted wisdom and intelligence. So I feel like they're going to be some really malicious and dangerous opponents to go up against, which I find
they're
delicious.
they're both an improvement on, but also worse than orcs, because the orcs are more instinctual. You're not going to probably be able to reason with them, so when they get a hair up their ass, you're just probably screwed. The dark elves are not so instinctually driven. Like, it's not like in their biology, but they are inherently, culturally, and in some ways biologically different. In the sense that they behave very differently from regular elves. Their intentions are different, and they're smart and long lived in their memories. So, yeah, they can be reasoned with, but if they're your enemy, they're a very dangerous enemy in a much more sinister way.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a lot of fun, and I like and going back to one of the things we talked about before that, when we were talking about riffing off of stuff, and this has all got a bunch of ideas going in my head. When you said, or we talked about the ancient dragon you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the name, by the way. I'm not going to say it out loud, but I love the name that you chose for it. It's very good. And having that, the thing that I wrote for Elface is, or Alphys, I guess is her name. Her being the psychopomp of Mordecai, but her having inherited that from the previous psychopomp who basically went off on a lust for power and did something stupid and got herself gotten, that now she inherited this title and became the psychopomp and became the end mother, but there used to be another end mother. I just think that I love adding those layers of the lore, because it's not like, well, this person's just always been there. It's like, well, the position's been there. You're not the first. You may not even be the best, but you are the current one. So I really enjoy that.
I thought that was a really cool thing that we came up with. Yeah, for sure. It's like it's a mantle. It's a mantle, and the same person won't always have that mantle, and not even the same quality of person will always have that mantle.
Yeah, different world outlook doing the same job, which I find to be, well, I mean, it's like any job, any place, any position. You could have somebody with a dramatically different mindset that takes over the same exact position and have completely different results. But if the boss is happy, as long as you end up getting the parts done they want, they're like, yeah, you did some things strangely, but you got it done. Good job. And yeah, broken maidenless. I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Somebody in the basement. No. That's just like I said. That's just messy. I've seen movies that start out like that. That just never ends well. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know how long you have to hang out, or if I have to let you go here. You just let me know. I'm just gonna keep working on some stuff here. Boss happy. I don't understand. Nice.
What I'll probably do is I'll because I've kind of dominated the larger part of your stream here.
Hey.
I can go to the background here, and if people have questions, I can just say my name and whatever, and I can hop in and answer it for sure.
Up to you. However you want to do it. I think it's good. It's entertaining. I think the back and forth, as much as people like to pretend that they're like, oh no, the Fed. When we get going on this stuff and start talking back and forth, I think it really brings out a lot of the depth and the life that the system is going to have, and the possibilities, and the depth that can be achieved by even putting down basic rules and basic tenets without saying, hey, you do whatever you want. You're gonna have the weirdest orcs, the weirdest that, like, now here's how the orcs are. Do what you want from that point. Setting down a rule, walking away from it, and saying it's your game, but here's how we do stuff. Do whatever afterwards, rather than trying to appease everybody in every state in every way and using really weaselly stupid language. Just putting something down, saying this is the fact, this is the way of the world, do what you will with it. I think people really appreciate that. We've got a few people,
Yeah,
I think, well, at least one person in chat, was it FX, I think, said that he's really excited about the system now. He's like, he usually does homebrew, but he's like, I may be getting this. So
yeah, and I think, and this is one of the core promises I made with the system. So I've gotten a few criticisms recently, and I've been trying to address them. And there's two. One, that we apparently haven't been talking about anything. That the criticism I got from two different people was that the only way I market this game is talking about how it's anti-woke. That's incorrect. There are, just with you alone now, there's over a dozen streams, right? I personally have done something like 20 streams. Plus we've had Effie's art. Plus you've got where I've mentioned it on streams that weren't related to Legend Seeker at all. And you've got the actual Discord stuff. I am constantly talking about the system and the lore and all of the other elements that should be attractive about it. If you haven't seen that, you're just not paying attention, or you're choosing not to pay attention. The reason I touch on the anti-woke thing so much is because it is the core problem with the industries, and it is something that I have rallied against. That's why I started this channel. I started this channel because there are people that our lore and our IPs that we've grown up with and helped build, that they literally built their product off of our backs and our support, right? The people who were given the honor and privilege of being custodians of that decided they were going to sell the soul of it to someone else, corporate entities and the government and DEI initiatives and things like that, and uproot it and gut it. And so, yes, that is a huge problem in the industry. And while it doesn't speak to the nuances of my system, my core tenet, my core promise to the people who are going to be buying my system and buying into my lore is, I'm not crafting all of this lore for you to just throw it away later because the government says, hey, we're going to give you an extra $100,000 this year if you promise to make all your orcs bang each other in a basement. No, that's not how this is going to work. The lore you get's the lore you're going to get to keep, and that's the promise I'm making to you. The system is for you. It's not for outsiders. It's not for activists. It's not for a government. This is my setting. This is my system, but I also understand it's yours too. You're helping build this. First off, as our backers now, but later on when you become a customer and you're buying the product and giving us your feedback, this is your world too. We're building it together. And I'm not going to rip it away from you because a bunch of crybabies on the internet. So yes, I do push that very hard. That's not the only thing about the system. So I find the criticism that people have levied that I don't talk about the actual system or give them any reason to want to look at the system outside of it's not woke. That's disingenuous. If you're saying that, that is you're just choosing not to pay attention. You're not looking, or you're looking for a fight, and I'm not going to have it with you. If you want to know about the system, watch these streams. Watch Frost Written. You want to know about the system? Go to my Q&As. You want to know more about the system? Join our Discord. We talk a lot about all of the elements of the system. And yes, I have not released the whole book yet, but we're not even in alpha yet. We are in early, like still writing the books and lore and system areas of the system. So yeah, obviously I don't have all the answers yet, but I think we're marketing a lot of what we're doing and doing it transparently and in a way that I hope you guys are finding engaging and interesting.
I hope so too. I think people are having fun, and people do like having everything bounce back and forth. And I think it is it's a strong argument for, I guess, the idea that you're putting out there, that this is, about the setting, the lore. That's what it's about. It's not about a message of any other sort. It's literally like putting together a good game with good lore and good mechanics. And there you go. And it's evidenced by, the passion of, just talking.
Yeah, and this is not an activist system or lore either, right? So it's not. I am very much still approaching this. I tried to model it a little bit after how Ripa made the Ripaverse, right? I'm not here to sell you a political ideology. I'm literally just writing a universe that I think's interesting, that I think has cool ideas, that's fun to explore, that feels lived in, that makes you say, I want to know more about that, and I'm going to go look over there and see what's under that rock, and find out, the story behind that. And it's not. I'm not selling you I don't have a blonde-haired champion of the people advocating for building a wall to keep the dark elves out. All right, that's not what I'm doing. The system isn't screaming some sort of political agenda to you. It's just its own setting that's building its own political agendas that are narratively entrenched based on the lore that we've created. It has nothing to do with the real world, my beliefs, your beliefs, anybody else's beliefs. It's just its own thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I have areas where the humans and dwarves hate each other in the lore right now in these certain spots. Other places, they totally love each other. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like real groups of people. It's in a world, like a fantasy setting where there's conflict everywhere. Weird. How about that?
I have to laugh a little bit. There was a short that we just put up. Jay Hellstorm has been working on some shorts for the channel, and he pulled one of a segment where I kind of went off on Legend Seeker, and what I was talking about was the rot in the industry and how activists have basically ruined the game, and my book's not going to offer that. That's it. I didn't actually offer any political viewpoints or anything. And apparently that was somebody responded, "This was the most toxic thing you could have ever said. Way to instantly turn me off from your product. I will not be biting. I'll be avoiding it like the plague." I'm like, okay, what part of I am not putting any activism in my game, I'm just making an adventure for you to explore, was the turnoff? Which part of that didn't you like? I'm very curious, because it's just, they don't have an argument against that. They don't have one. And I just find that entertaining.
It was the part where you didn't like their mindset. So toxic. You didn't specifically say you liked the way they think and didn't back them. So yeah, there you go, toxic. How dare you rethink?
It's wild. And the thing is, I don't even know how I think. Even in that clip, it doesn't say how I think. Literally, all I said was, I'm not going to put activism in my games. And they instantly knew what the activism was. They knew what it was because it's what they support. They want it shoved into their games. So I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's people. What are you going to do with them? I don't know. I guess just tolerate them, right? I like people just fine. Well, most of them.
Do what I'm doing and make my own thing and not worry about what they think.
What?
I know, crazy concept.
I'll let you read Horace's message over in Kick. I'm not going to read it all out.
I actually can't see Kick right now. So if there is a message over there, Queen Shirt, if you could copy paste it over.
It's ridiculous, funny, silly stuff. But yeah, it's.
Maybe I should open it. I'll get Kick open. Oh wait, here it is. Jesus Christ. What would happen if a dog-faced pony soldiers under the command of their infernal leader Corntop rode out from the core of the plane, destroyed the Underdark, and then set their sights on eating everything on the surface? Well, that sounds like an adventure with a call to action to save the world, right?
Yeah. Have fun in that campaign. And let us know how it turns out. I'd hide behind Sebi at that point.
I'll be rooting for Corn Pop.
Corn Pop! Chocolate chip. That's the name of his mount. Okay. Well, I'm gonna write a little bit more here. I've got about a half an hour left. I'm gonna work a little bit more on, because I wrote a bunch of the stuff up when we started at the beginning about the Dark Elves. I'm gonna work a little bit more on these notes before the end of this. And yeah, if anybody has any questions for Erudi, I just throw them here. Are you just gonna hang out in the voice chat and just hang out in the back, or how do you want to do that?
I'll be chilling. I
Okay.
got a little bit of prep I gotta do for March at the Dragon Queen tonight, anyways. So yeah, if you guys if you got questions, fire them off. I'll answer what I can, and where I can't, I'll just tell you I can't.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to keep writing then. Thanks for coming on by. And I don't think you dominated anything. I think it was good to have your voice in here, because it's your system. That's why we have this stream. So there we go.
Yeah, it was nice to have the back and forth for sure, and let people hear us bouncing off each other. They don't always get to see that. We mostly do that in the background. So
Exactly. All right. Now that he's gone, oh wait, maybe he's not gone yet. No. I would try and do one of those streams where, you know, like he would fight against Sevi, the shackles of Sevi, but I'm not shackled. I write stuff, and if he doesn't like it, he'll say no. So there we go. Oh, what did I miss in chat here? Anything? Here, imagine that. And a crescent face palm. Very nice. All right. So what I'm writing now is about this. I have his name as Malak right now, but I think I'm going to come up with a better name for him. I like this name, but I'm going to have to work on it a little bit. But this dark elf, he basically seduced his own daughter into the magic that he was doing, got her so ingrained in it and so brainwashed into his search for power that he talked her into willingly sacrificing her own soul to aid him in his journey to becoming a lich. And so once he did that, he's basically like, good, now I'm set. And then he's free to do all this horrible stuff and do all the nasty things you think a lich would do, but, you know, obviously with no moral tethering. We'll go with tethering. So if you can imagine somebody who's a horrible person doing that to their own flesh and blood, there you go. There's him. Go. Yes, see, well, and here's the thing. That is exactly why I wrote the sentence that way, because it's supposed to give you that hint of just utter depravity. It's not the depravity you think of. But I want to start that sentence and put you in a mindset of like, oh, no, it's not good, but not as bad as it could have been. It's horrifying, but yeah. So Erudi basically, blah, blah. So he's a politician. He's a lot more than a politician. He's a horrible being. I can use other words? No, that word just is so gross when put in that context. It's so disturbing that I'm like, yes, I want that disturbing thought in people's head, then to just take them totally that direction into another horrifying realm. So yeah, there you go. The poetry and magic of writing. Whee! The audacity of that guy giving us a game where we can play how we want. Time to cancel him. Frost and Erudi are two peas in the pot. I'm suddenly terrified. Oh, you weren't terrified before? Huh. I was doing something wrong. Huh. Well, cat's out of the bag. Did you have a chance to look over the style guide? Oh, Horace, no, I did not. You reminded me of that. I'm going to give myself a note on my desktop here. a note, give myself a text document. Because I had it on my note, a list of things to look at. And I will leave us to this note to myself, and I will give myself a notification. There we go. I have a text document for myself. So I will remember. Savage Talk. All you need to do is play a game of Frost for a few hours and know it's true evil. Exactly. 11 pages long, Horace. Oh my gosh. Hey, I'm not the one who brutally maimed a guy in the game last night because he told you some secret information that you needed to know. That might have been Lavinia, your character. I'm just saying, Savage Talk. I think we know all about it. And I may have given somebody a really super mean nickname that we're not going to talk about because it's so mean that people will hate me. But yeah, that was an accident. That was just my inner evil working itself out. That's how it works. And, you know, the pressure valve is, you know, released. The evil is gone. For now. It was for the Emperor. I was in character. Hey, how do you know I'm not in character? Wait. Let's see. All right. Basically, I had this guy being his experiments, not only on the denizens of the underside, but his own people have made him something of a pariah. Only those tethered to him by patronage and political machinations will have anything to do with him. Because what I'm putting this guy down as, and I've talked to Erudi a little bit about this, is there are a lot of creatures in the world that can become patrons. There are a lot of things that can become really super powerful, and they can become patrons of people who are looking for power. So they could be, you know, like a warlock pact, a patron, or whatever. They can grant you power in exchange for favors and allegiance and help and whatnot. And he's one of them because he is super powerful, and he's not worried about getting more power by any means necessary. And he has people who are beholden to him because of it. And yeah, he's just not a good person. I think the Frost Maiden crew might even think this guy's evil. He made a name for someone so evil we refuse to speak it out loud. And so, yes, I made a name for someone so evil we do refuse to speak it out loud because it's beyond the pale. I am so sorry for it, but it's out there in the universe now. I feel so bad. So bad. Bow my head, Tim Tebow style, and atone for my sin of coming up with that name. And it just flowed right off the tongue. It just boom. So there you go. Don't think I'm nice. Chrysanth says occasionally, very, very cutely, she's like, "Oh, I'm evil." I'm like, are you? I think I'm the Frost Wizard. I'm the one who has no soul. I have, you know, a heart of ice, so it's proven. I think it's right. Except when I'm snuggling it with Calvino and he comes up and puts his head under my beard, and I melt completely because he's such a sweet cat. Yes, and nobody ever made artwork out of it or anything. Right, Savage Talk? Right? Right. One of the weirdest things is the style guides on page 2, they say they avoid characters that smoke. They can't do drugs or drink. They can't... Really? The Pinnacle style guide says they can't smoke? You can snort cocaine in Deadlands, but you better not smoke it. Wow. That's just stupid. I don't know. Smoking is dumb. It's bad for you. But if you want to do it, go ahead. Okay. But to have it in style guides and stuff saying no, don't reference this, I'm like, okay. I don't understand people. I don't get them. That's what we do. We turn this guy into a chain smoker. He's going to be the most evil person in the world. He just wanders around the world. His whole point is he hands cigarettes out to kids across the realm. There we go. Most evil character ever. The Lich. The big tobacco Lich. No, he has nothing to do with that. He's just evil for other reasons. The exact wording. We also don't glorify smoking and in general try to avoid it altogether. Yes, even in Deadlands Noir. Wow. Talk about choosing the wrong hill to die on. All right. Delve deep into the lore of the Keepers. The last step is Grix himself. People have made up something of a pariah. Okay. I'm just saying he holds court in his palace of corrupted ice. Dark halls home to erudite demons. So yeah, he's got all kinds of interesting creatures and things here that really shouldn't be loose in the world. Demons. He's got warlocks, lesser evils, and people wandering and doing his bidding. Yeah, people, all the reflective surfaces of the ice warp the viewer and offer unpleasant and hideous, say hideous, glimpses into the underside. Okay, the ethereal underside. Why does it say that? Okay, that says that letter wrong. All right, that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, Chrysanth. That's just nuts. People are crazy. People are crazy. People are NVTS nuts. Do that. There we go. No, Horace, I never have. I have not done anything. I've done some stuff in Python. I've done C#, C++, all that kind of fun stuff. Nothing outside of that, though. Do you think, trying to think what a fitting kind of a right-hand man, right, you know, his girl Friday kind of assistant to the evil lich guy, the dark elven lich would be. I think one of the people, this may be his little sidekick, is I think one of them should be a hairless kennel that is totally under this guy's thumb. He owes Malik more than one favor. He's there all the time, always hoping to find some scrap of lore or something to barter with in the outside world. Very conniving, pretty wretched, and kind of living on borrowed time. So the Rudy Poos, the Legend Seeker equivalent of these Nuts clans. No, I mean, the Rudy Poos are not exactly highly organized sentient creatures of any sort. They are reactionary little bladders full of goo. And that's what they're there for, to slow down players. Hey, Erudi, if you're still there, are hairless kennels all male? Or can there be a female hairless kennel?
Well, that's disturbing.
What do you think? Can you have a girl hairless kennel? Or should they all be male?
I mean, yeah, I guess there's got to be the potential of female ones.
Okay. I like this because I want to give this guy not only a toady, someone to kind of kick around, who he's like is important to have him around, and the hairless kennel, are kind of a fake creature, so I mean technically they can die, right? But
Yeah. Oh, can a hairless kennel die?
yeah.
Oh yeah, they could definitely die. They're not immortal.
And they don't come back. They're like any other fae or whatever Canadian creature or a corrupted thing that just when they die they're gone. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. I want something there to be this whiny little thing that's always going around trying to it would be fun in an adventure to have this thing going around, because I'm sure that someone would be like, oh my gosh, she's so pitiful, why is he so mean to her? And then you'll just be like, we're gonna help this thing for a reason or something, and then realize, oh well, that's why you don't help it, because it doesn't care that you helped it, it's coming at your throat. Okay. Ooh, disturbing and fun.
Yeah, hairless kennels, they're not like overly powerful either. They're probably a challenge for like a younger level party, but they're not like usually. There can be more powerful ones, obviously, as like unique individuals, but they're not like super high tier. They're not like beholder level, for example.
Right. I think this one would just literally be one that has power from having made deals with Malek and maybe demons and stuff, but really overextended herself. Like, yeah, you have a little piece, you have a little piece, you have a little piece. Oh no. What do I do now? It's trying to get herself out of it, but also, doing horrible things. I just think it'd be a fun little character to have, for them to have playing with. I think. Because, like, not powerful, but lots of favors and from lots of people and lots of things to call on. Could be
And one of
entertaining.
the things I'm trying hard to do too, so like with the example of the hairless kennel and its design, is I'm trying to create. I mean, obviously we're going to have classic trope characters, right? You'll have basilisks and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to create some things that are unique to this setting and have what I would call identity signatures. So that when an adventurer is adventuring, they can pick up context clues early. If you start seeing undead felines around or missing trinkets and junk that otherwise most people would consider useless, that could be early foreshadowing of a hairless kennel, because that's, they create these undead thralls. These thralls aren't very bright. They go out and steal anything that looks like it could be shiny or valuable, and that often includes a lot of junk. So a hairless kennel's hoard is in large part worthless. It's a bunch of crap with occasional nuggets of, okay, that actually ended up being kind of valuable.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's part of my design philosophy, is trying to find things that stand out in the adventuring world and that have a really unique thumbprint.
Okay. Well, I'm just giving her the name Murmur right now.
Murmur's good.
So she's just a hairless kennel that owes this guy a lot of favors. She's a frequent visitor at his place, always looking for things to barter with and take back. But yeah, and she's living on borrowed time because she's overextended herself, so to speak. Okay, they'll be entertaining. I think it'll be fun. But Scrap Hermit had a fun question. Would a female hairless kennel hate itself?
Probably.
Like, yeah, I think so.
That makes sense to me. I mean, because, kennels hate women, so it only makes sense you'd hate yourself. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, well, there we go. Some more horrifying lore. Oh my gosh, disturbing. Man. Okay. Thanks. Oh, what did I just get? I just got a message. What did I get? Let
I
me
know you
check
guys
it.
are eager for some hairless kennel female artwork. I'll make sure we get some of that for you ASAP.
Yep, I think she has to have little seashells on though, or something, right? No, maybe. I hope. Not sure.
I mean, keep the people from their goods? Nah, I don't want to deny people.
Oh my gosh! Did you ever, when you were younger, did you ever see the gnome books that they wrote? They always drew the gnomes, those beautiful watercolors with the little red hats. And it was like all the books about gnomes and fairies and stuff. But they had the nemesis, the creatures that ate the gnomes, called the snot gurgles.
No, I do not know about this.
Oh my gosh! If you've never looked up a snot gurgle, because at one point they're horrible to the gnomes. It's like Grimm's level fairy tale. Some of these pictures, I just picture the hairless kennel having like a snotty little nose while she's sitting there in her little bulk, just like no. Sorry, I've just got horrible images in my face here. There's I'll send you a picture here. I'll get the picture here. I'll send it to you in a DM. These things are just horrible, and this picture is showing the snot gurgle about to put a gnome into a meat grinder while a rat laughs. It's gross.
Oh my god. The hell?
Exactly. They were just like, I read those, or watched those, or looked at those books and read them as a kid, and I was like, wow. I think that might have, twisted my brain a little bit to the darker side of fantasy. Yeah, here, Chris Hanth, I'll send you the same picture. This is, yeah, just, I don't remember what the books, who wrote the books or anything about them, but yeah, they're big, dumb creatures like trolls that, yeah, they're gross. So there you go, snot gurgles.
Well, this all makes more sense now. Sometimes Chrysanth will send me messages at night saying she can't sleep, and I'll be like, "What's wrong with Chrysanth?" She'll be like, "The snot gurgles."
There you
I'm
go.
like, "What?" I just thought she had like a cold or something. Like maybe she was sick. But no, it turns out because she's a gnome herself, she's actually afraid of these things. I did not realize the depths of her concern.
Oh no, it's so horrible. They're coming for you. There, Chrysanth, hopefully you're not an arachnophobe. I'll send you the second one. It's just a picture of the two of them just hanging out in their cave or something. Oh my gosh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And apologies for Calvino not being here. He was in here earlier when I worked all day. He sat on my lap. And then a little bit before I got ready to do stuff for the stream, I got up and went to the door to see if he wanted to go out. He went out. And then I checked to see if he wanted to come in for the stream. And he was laying on the patio table out here. And I went over and petted him. He rolled over, let me pet his stomach. And I said, "You coming in?" And he just looks at me and goes, "Rah." And he's still sleeping out there. He's just all splayed out on the table, like snoring away happily. So, no Calvino. He's just sunning himself in the non-sun, since it's all cloudy right now. But yeah, the red noses of the snot gurgles are they're just gross. They're just gross. And they're so brutal. They're just so mean. All right. I spelled that correctly. What is it? What's it complaining about? All right, so we've got Murmur, the little hairless Kinnel that owes Malik more than one favor. Got it. Looks like we're almost out of time here, so I'm gonna write down 2 more things. Yeah, because she's not gonna be a good enough right-hand person for him. He's not gonna get anything useful out of her. We'll just put that down as a name. We'll put it in a heading at 4, so we get that in there. And possibly a nemesis for him. Okay, got it. Go. So Crescent, yeah, the red noses are pretty amazing on those creatures. They're very disturbing. They love eating gnomes. They don't even take the clothes off the gnome. They just grind them up, red hat and all, and just eat them. That's just what they do. It's just what they do. Kick appears to be blocking some of my posts. Well, Horace, yeah, I've had that before where I've typed the most innocuous things, but occasionally if I put too many ellipses or punctuation or something, I don't know what it's doing. If I write a longer message, it will just delete the whole thing and it won't tell me why. It just does it. So I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. And R. Kelly, did you get her to sleep? Kick does eat chat. It does, yep. It just says blah, mine. Just like a snot gurgle. All right, here we go. I got this put in here. That was a little bit of lore from Erudi about Alphys. I guess it's a very German. I thought it was not a German. I thought it was like a Norwegian word, but Alphys is German. So she's a very, very German dragon made of ice. All right, I'm going to leave that there. So we got a couple minutes left only, so I'm going to kind of start signing out here. This has been Frost and Erudi for Frost Written. We're doing lore and chatting about brainstorming about the whole setting and all the fun things we can do with the creatures for Legend Seeker, the RPG system that Erudi is currently writing. And you can find me here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays over at Geeks and Gamers Tabletop, 5 to 7. Same name, same thing over there. And 5 to 7 on Thursdays here for Frost Written. You can find me Mondays on Moonskull for the Call of Cthulhu live play. And then you're going to be able to start finding me Sundays at 3. I'm going to go with my time instead of JT's time. 3 p.m. Sunday afternoons, we're starting the Rips campaign up over on JT's channel. It will be the character creation stream this Sunday, so come join us. We're partway through the goals already for the character creation stream, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, show up, support us, make fun of us, get to know our characters before we play the first session, and then eventually I'll also be in Moss's The One Ring campaign. The time and date and everything to be announced for that. I'm really looking forward to that one too. So we're gonna have a heck of a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep working on this stuff, and hopefully you guys can join me every single time. But also, like and comment. Like and comment. Give me comments. Tell me what kind of stuff you want to see more of. You want to hear more Erudi? You want to hear less Erudi? You're going to hear more Erudi. You let us know. And if you think anything we're doing is amazing or crazy, you know, comment. Throw comments. We'll try and respond to them. But also, throw those likes. Thumbs up. All right. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go hit some buttons. And I will talk to you all later. A little bit later, I know JT is going to be streaming Squirrel with Gun. I might be doing the same thing. We'll see. So I don't think we can play it co-op, so we may be playing it separately. That makes sense. All right, I'm going to get out of here and stop babbling. I will talk to you all a little bit later once I find the right button. And behave. Don't summon anything in your basement.